Success with money has almost nothing to do with how smart you are and everything to do with how you behave. That's one of the first shocking lessons from The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, a book that doesn't just talk about money, but about human nature, luck, risk, and the surprising truths behind wealth. Today, we're breaking down the key lessons from this book. Stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about getting rich, staying rich, and what money really means. And trust me, what you'll discover may shock you. Let's start with one of the most powerful stories in the entire book. Ronald Read was a janitor and gas station attendant. He lived in Vermont, drove a second-hand Toyota, and nobody would have guessed he was wealthy. But when he passed away at the age of 92, people were stunned. Ronald left behind an $8 million fortune. How? Not by winning the lottery. Not by inventing something new. He built it slowly by saving diligently and investing in blue-chip stocks for decades. Now, compare that to Richard Fuscone. Richard was a Harvard-educated Merrill Lynch executive. He had all the connections, the career, the prestige. At one point, he had multiple homes, including a 19-bathroom mansion with 11 fireplaces. But in 2008, when the financial crisis hit, Richard lost everything. He went bankrupt. Two men, one with no financial background, the other with elite credentials. And yet the janitor ended up rich, while the banker went broke. The lesson? Financial success is not about how smart you are. It's not about having the best job, the best education, or the biggest paycheck. It's about how you behave, patience, discipline, and humility. Ronald Read quietly let compounding do the heavy lifting. Richard Fuscone chased status, over-leveraged himself, and collapsed. And this leads directly to the next shocking idea in the book, the role of luck and risk. In The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel tells the story of Bill Gates. We all know Gates as one of the richest men in the world, the founder of Microsoft, and one of the most famous entrepreneurs in history. But what most people don't know is how much luck was involved. In 1968, Gates went to one of the only high schools in the entire world that had a computer. Think about that. In the 1960s, computers were almost non-existent, yet Gates had access to one as a teenager. That rare opportunity allowed him to practice coding for thousands of hours before most people even touched a computer. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Gates wasn't alone. His best friend, Paul Allen, also had access, and together they went on to build Microsoft. And then there was a third friend. His name was Kent Evans. Kent was just as smart, just as ambitious, maybe even more talented than Gates. He was ready to go to college with them and take on the world. But he never got the chance. Kent died in a mountaineering accident before graduation. One went on to become a billionaire. One became a co-founder of a global company. And one never made it past 17. What does this teach us? That luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. Bill Gates is not just a story of talent and hard work. He's also a story of extraordinary luck. Kent Evans is a reminder that no amount of talent can protect you from life's risks. The real takeaway is this. When you see someone who's extremely successful, recognize the role of luck. And when you see someone who's failed, recognize the role of risk. Don't overestimate your control, and don't underestimate the randomness of life. And speaking of control, the next lesson in this book hits even harder. It's about how chasing more can destroy everything you already have. There's a story in The Psychology of Money that captures one of the most dangerous illusions about wealth. Years ago, writer Kurt Vonnegut and fellow author Joseph Heller were at a billionaire's party. Vonnegut joked that the host had made more money in a single day than Heller had earned from his entire best-selling book. Heller calmly replied, "Yes, but I have something he will never have, Enough. That single word, enough, is one of the hardest concepts for humans to grasp. Because in money, there's always more to chase. More status, more zeros, more power. And ironically, the chase for more often destroys the very stability people already have. Think of Bernie Madoff. He had enough to live a wealthy life many times over, but greed pushed him into one of the biggest frauds in history, which ended in disgrace. Or think of Richard Fuscone from earlier, chasing bigger mansions, more prestige, more status, until more became his downfall. The lesson? If you can't define what enough means for you, then no amount of money will ever satisfy you. The danger isn't in not having enough. The danger is in never realizing when you already do. But even if you get the money, another trap awaits: the illusion of status. Imagine you see someone driving a brand new luxury car. What's your first thought? Most people don't say, "Wow, that driver must be really impressive." Instead, they think, "If I had that car, people would admire me." But here's the paradox. Nobody actually looks at the driver and thinks about them. They think about themselves. That's the man in the car paradox. Morgan Housel points out that people often buy expensive things not because they bring joy, but because they think it will make others respect them. But in reality, it rarely works that way. The admiration never goes to the owner. It stays in the mind of the observer. And the sad part? Many people go into debt, stress themselves out, or even wreck their future finances just to chase that fleeting image of status. Real respect doesn't come from material things. It comes from character, humility, and how you treat people. The car, the watch, the house, those are just symbols. And symbols fade fast. But if respect and status aren't the real rewards of money, then what is? The answer might surprise you. If there's one lesson from the psychology of money that everyone should take to heart, it's this: the highest dividend money pays is freedom. Think about it. What do most people actually want when they say they want to be rich? It's not the cars, the mansions, or even the bank balance. What they really want is control over their time, the ability to wake up when they want, to choose how to spend their day, to say no to things they don't want to do. There's a study that shows one of the biggest predictors of happiness isn't income, but autonomy, the feeling that you control your life. A person making $60,000 in 1 year with total freedom might feel richer than someone making $600,000, who's chained to a schedule they hate. And here's the kicker: you don't need millions to have that kind of freedom. You just need enough security that your choices aren't dictated by fear or obligation. Money is not about buying more stuff, it's about buying more time. And that's why the next lesson is so powerful. Because money, when used with patience, can create something almost magical: the unstoppable force of compounding. Albert Einstein supposedly called compounding the eighth wonder of the world, and when you hear this story, you'll understand why. Warren Buffett is one of the richest men alive, with a net worth in the hundreds of billions. But here's the shocking part. Most of that wealth didn't come in his early career. In fact, 99% of Buffett's fortune came after his 50th birthday. How? Compounding. Buffett started investing as a child and kept at it for decades. By allowing his money to compound year after year, he turned modest returns into a staggering fortune. If he had started later or stopped earlier, his results would have been completely different. Here's the lesson: compounding isn't about earning the highest returns. It's about earning pretty good returns consistently for the longest period of time. Time is the real magic ingredient. And this isn't just true for money. Compounding applies to knowledge, relationships, habits. The longer you stick with something, the more powerful the results become. But here's the twist. While compounding builds slowly and quietly, the world itself often changes because of the exact opposite: rare, explosive events. Morgan Housel makes a bold point. Most of history is shaped by just a handful of events. In investing, these are called tail events, the rare, unpredictable moments that make all the difference. Think about the stock market. If you look at decades of returns, the vast majority of gains often come from just a small number of days. Miss those few, and your results collapse. Or take businesses. Amazon's massive success doesn't come from every product it sells. Most of its profits come from just a few breakthroughs like Amazon Web Services. And it's not just money. Human history itself turns on tail events: wars, inventions, discoveries. The airplane, the internet, penicillin. None of these were predictable, but each reshaped the world. The lesson? Success doesn't come from getting everything right. It comes from surviving long enough to benefit from the few things that go unbelievably right. But there's a danger here, because surviving long enough requires patience, and patience requires realizing something uncomfortable. We are constantly changing. Here's a question. What did you want 10 years ago? Chances are it's very different from what you want today, and 10 years from now, it'll be different again. This is one of the most underrated challenges in money. We make long-term financial plans based on who we are today, but the person making withdrawals decades from now will be a different version of us. Morgan Housel calls this the illusion of permanence. We assume our goals, desires, and values are fixed, but in reality, they evolve. People who once wanted the biggest house later crave simplicity. People who chased power may later crave peace. This is why flexibility is so important. Planning is useful, but over-planning can backfire if it locks you into a future you may no longer want. The lesson? Avoid the trap of assuming your future self will want the same things as your present self. Leave room for change. Leave room for growth. And speaking of planning, the next set of lessons reveal something surprising. When it comes to money, being reasonable often beats being rational. We often think the smartest financial plan is the most rational one. Cold, mathematical, optimized to the last decimal. But here's the truth. The best plan is not the most rational one. It's the one you can actually stick with. Imagine two investors. One has the perfect portfolio, mathematically balanced for maximum returns. But the moment the market crashes, he panics, sells at the bottom, and ruins his results. The other has a simple, boring plan. Maybe it's not perfectly efficient, but it's comfortable, and he can follow it for decades without stress. Who wins in the end? The second investor, because consistency beats brilliance. Being reasonable means choosing a strategy that works with your personality, your emotions, and your lifestyle. Rationality looks perfect on paper. Reasonableness works in the real world. And the key to being reasonable is often simpler than people think: saving. In The Psychology of Money, Housel emphasizes a surprising point. Wealth isn't built by high incomes. It's built by high savings rates. Why? Because income is temporary, but savings are permanent. Income depends on someone else's decision to hire you, promote you, or buy from you. Savings depend only on your decision to spend less than you earn. Look back at Ronald Read, the janitor we met in the beginning. He didn't have a high income. He simply saved, invested, and waited. That's it. Meanwhile, Richard Fuscone earned millions but spent more than he had and ended with nothing. Saving is powerful because it gives you options. It creates security. It buys freedom. And unlike chasing higher returns, saving doesn't require luck, timing, or genius. It's entirely in your control. But there's more. Saving protects you from the unknown, the emergencies, the surprises, the tail risks. Remember, luck and risk run the world. You can't control them, but savings are your defense. And this leads us into the final, overarching lessons of the book. At its core, The Psychology of Money teaches 3 truths. Be humble. Success is never all your own doing. Luck plays a bigger role than most people admit. Focus on survival. The game is not about getting rich once, it's about staying rich forever. Always prepare for the unexpected. Keep perspective. Wealth isn't cars, houses, or status. It's freedom. It's control over your time. It's the ability to say, enough. The people who thrive with money aren't the smartest or the boldest. They're the ones who respect risk, control their emotions, save consistently, and think long-term. Money is a mirror. It doesn't just reflect your bank balance, it reflects your behavior, your fears, your patience, and your ability to define enough. Ronald Read, the janitor, quietly became rich because he mastered patience. Richard Fuscone, the executive, lost everything because he couldn't master restraint. Bill Gates rose through a mix of talent and extraordinary luck, while his friend Kent Evans reminds us that risk can end everything in an instant. And through it all, Morgan Housel's message in The Psychology of Money is clear. True wealth isn't measured in numbers. It's measured in freedom, peace of mind, and the ability to live life on your terms. So if there's one thing to take away from this book, it's this. Don't just chase money. Learn to respect it, understand it, and let it quietly work for you. Because in the end, the psychology of money is really the psychology of you.